Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Jlouvier here. Today I wanted to show you a Thomaswoodenrailway yearbook from the year 2000. This is volume 6, and the first thing that caught my attention right when I first pulled this out of the attic the other day is that it's got the Thomas and the Magic Railroad movie stamped right on the front. They were highly advertising that in the summer of 2000, so it made sense for them to put it on here. Plus, you'll see later in this yearbook that they offer a ton of items from that movie that were in wooden railway form, so we'll get to that a little bit later. So let's take a look. Also, one thing here is they note that there's a bonus mini movie poster inside, so that's pretty exciting. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's in here. So taking a look at the first page, one thing that I remember vividly from these yearbooks is that they always had these check marks, and you can see down here it says check them as you collect them. And for me, that was something that I really enjoyed doing as a kid. Whether it was G.I. Joe or something else that you collected, it was really cool to get these because you would save them and you would have them for Christmas, and you'd have all the different items that you wanted to collect. So it's really cool that they have this little check mark, and you would just check the ones that you were interested in getting. So you can see the first page here is advertising all the new items for the year 2000. I'll go ahead and read them as we're going through. You've got Trevor, you've got Rickety there, you've got the box cars, and these box cars, they're pretty much identical, except for one was a different color, I believe, variant, and they would just slide open. You got the classic Bertram, the old Warrior scrap cars. That's a classic. I've had a couple of those over the years. And you had the standard hand car down there. Then you had your battery operated, I'll just fold this over. You had your battery operated items. Now, this particular item gets a lot of feedback in negative and positive. It just depends on who I talk to, but these are the original battery operated Thomases. I actually really enjoyed them. They were built to last, man. I've still got some of these that are still running. One of the cool things is I believe it went forward and backwards. Yeah, it says right here it went forward and backwards. Then you had the Thomas Pack. This also was battery operated, but it came with a milk tanker. And then you had Percy over here, the Express Pack. And then down here, I didn't even realize that they did offer a battery powered set. So this is the battery powered set that was offered. It's called Thomas Express Battery Powered Set. I don't think I've ever actually owned that particular set. All right, let's go ahead and flip this over and see what else there is. All right. Here's some of the sets that they had. They had the new for this year was the Stop and Go figure 8 set, which learning curve was very smart on re-releasing. This figure 8 set just seemed to be such a big seller back in the day. They made them every year, and I think they were pretty much cheaply priced, so it was easier to have like a, engineer's first experience with the wooden railway was that they get one of these figure 8 sets for Christmas or for their birthday. And but I always thought it was interesting how these things just end sometimes. The figure 8 set, see how this just ends to nowhere? That was just kind of odd in my opinion. It almost would have been better to just keep it straight, and then if you wanted to add on to it later, you could put that piece in. But to offer that piece, it was really interesting. There's the standard Stop and Go signal, which, gosh, that came in a ton of sets back in the day. Then you had, once again, this is another basically starter set. You had the circle set, which was super, super common back in the day. All the way since 92, I think the circle set was there. So once again, the circle set makes an appearance. Here's a set that I actually have that I haven't reviewed, which is the circus set. This one was really pretty much a circle set, but it had something that went through the middle of it, and it also had a playboard that was unique to it. So that was kind of cool. You can have just a playboard. Then you had Around the Barrel Loader set, which was super, super popular. And this set actually is a classic in my mind. I just think that the way that they had the layout was pretty genius. It's basically reconfigured figure eight. It's not exactly figure eight, but it just had more playability in my opinion. Also came with more, like, I don't want to say destinations, but more items like trees and different characters, which always is a good addition to any set. They're advertising it here as a bestseller, which is interesting. Then we had a massive set called the Day at the Work set, and this is a great set. I think I've actually reviewed this set. It's one of my favorites. It's definitely a classic. It was something that was competitively priced. It also did, I believe it did come with this playboard too. Yeah, it did. It came with the playboard, which was unique as well. And you got the classic Sodor Bay barge in there. So that's cool. Which is interesting. It had this little pin at the end, and it's been said that that pin was originally going to be a connector for it to tow. But I don't know if that actually was the case or not, but that's what I've heard. So, but the tugboat is definitely a classic retro piece. This reminds me of early 90s Thomas. Then moving on down, you've got your accessories, which was super common. I've seen a lot of these on eBay floating around. You had the carry bag, then some more play mats that you could use, which were unique. It was always nice to get that to kind of add a spice to your layout. So nowadays people actually go crazy and will make their own stuff out of model pieces and stuff, which is crazy. But back in the day, that was an easy way to spice up your layout, is to have one of those playboards. All right, moving on, we've got probably one of the most iconic sets, which is the James Goes Buzz Buzz set. Now this set I've also reviewed. This is just a classic, and that's one of those story sets that you could buy back in the day. One thing I got to say is that this year still was advertising the Clickity Clack track, and that, in my opinion, was the best track that they ever offered. I wasn't a huge fan of the traction rail or the newer style track. There's just something about this classic piece, the classic Clickity Clack track, that I just really enjoyed. Then you've got the Mountain Tunnel set, which is another classic. Moving on, you've got over here the Roundhouse set, and I reviewed that a few years back. This set I was able to get pretty much brand new. I think it was a piece that had been used in a specific toy store that had been, they had it out for a little bit and they put it back in the box. So it was pretty much brand new. And that set is definitely one of the most incredible sets that had ever been released, even to this day. The only thing that I had an issue with were the plastic risers. Sometimes would have an issue. And then I think it was the way the layout was, that there was an issue with one of the turns that I always had an issue trying to get the actual layout to work. You just had to like stretch the track around to kind of pull it in the right direction to get the track to work perfectly. But honestly, what you got in this particular set was incredible. I mean, it just came with everything. And it was one of those sets that every kid really, really wanted to have back in the day. I remember seeing this pretty much at all the big toy stores, and you could sit there and play with it, and it was like, oh my goodness. Can't remember what the price was, but it was definitely expensive. It had to have been over $200 some for that set back in the day. You had the Bridge and Tunnel set as well, which is pictured here, which is a unique set. It just had a bunch of different bridges. Not too many destinations, mostly just a place to go around and around. Then you had the Island Adventure playboard, which I don't think I've ever seen that particular playboard. And then they offer some other play tables down here, which I've seen these on the market over the course of the last few years. Those show up on eBay all the time. They're advertising it as includes colorful graphics with 3D molded engine faces, and those engines, which you can't really see on this picture, would pop out from the table, and they were 3D. So that was interesting. All right, then you have your expansion packs. Now, pretty much every year they would come out with these expansion packs, which is essentially just more track, maybe some different pieces that go along with it. But it was an easy way for them to package up and bundle up different items, and that they could, sell to you, and without you having to buy an entire set for more parts and pieces. So you could add on to your adventure, to your land, real easily with these sets. So in here they show you start with the circle set, and then you can add this particular expansion set, which there's your new layout. So it was a cool little idea, and I'm not entirely sure how well these sold, but definitely they were popular back in the day. And even fairly recently, they were still selling expansion packs, even with Thomas Wood. So they must be popular. They also offered this one, which here's a figure 8 expansion pack. So you could have that expand as well. Your train yard expansion packs. It says the easy way to expand on 4 classic destinations to create train yard layouts. Instructions are included in each pack by combining your cargo crane, barrel loader, log loader, or sawmill with included track pieces to bring a train yard to life. That's really cool. So here they're advertising just a bunch of different parts and pieces. Once again, you could add to your layout, which is great. So let's just keep moving on here. They also had the lumberyard expansion pack down here, which this actually came in quite a few different sets, but it's cool that you could get it separately by buying just that expansion. Actually, no, it doesn't. That actually came... Okay, so they're advertising to add it to the loader, so which is cool. This sawmill, by the way, I don't know if they'll show it in this magazine, but this was incredible. It's one of my favorite all-time pieces for the Wooden Railway. All right, moving on. Now you've got your vehicles, which is just your standard items that were already on the market, but it's cool to see the old style versions of these, which I still to this day believe that the old versions of all of these trains are pretty much my favorite. I just feel like the quality was better back then. I know that nowadays they are priced to sell, and price to sell is definitely lost some quality in my opinion. Although I will say, man, price to sell, some of this stuff has gotten out of hand on pricing. So they've got Edward, Gordon, Percy, Toby, Diesel, James, Henry, Donald and Douglas, and they've also got Bill, Ben, Clarabelle and Annie, Duck, Mavis, Daisy, Oliver, Peter, Sam, Scarloey, D199, Caldy, and Stepney. All right. Once again, more vehicles. Although before we go over these ones, I will say they're advertising or actually showing picture of a character card. And I've done video on that before, but character cards were one of those other things that were just so cool for the young engineer to get. To be able to collect those, it was just another thing that made the item special. I remember getting those in the box, and you pull it out and you have a character card and you can collect those, and that was such a special moment back in the day to be able to have those. It's unfortunate that once again with the merger of RC2, when Learning Curve went down, they bought them out, and Mattel, they basically, well, it was before that. RC2 was the one that kind of got rid of the character cards, but the character cards were pretty special. I know there's people and collectors out there that really just collect the cards still to this day. G.I. Joe had something similar too. I keep bringing up G.I. Joe, but I remember at the back of the box you had a character and you had about his bio, and you could cut that out. It had little places where you could cut it, and you cut that out and collect your cards. So that was cool. But they've got Duke, Rheneas, Sir Handel, Fred, Duncan, Neil, which is one of the smallest releases ever, Diesel, or the Diesel, sorry, NW Breakvan, Toad, Mike, Catherine, and you got SC Ruffy, you got the breakdown train here, Sodor Line Caboose, Henry's Log Forest car, which they're advertising works with the loader, so they must have a picture of the loader on another page here. We've got the Milk, Tidmouth Milk, Chinese Dragon, the old style one, which is the best. The Express coaches. Then you get these 2 packs, which is the Tar Tanker fuel car, the Sodor China clay cars, which these are definitely worth a value if you have these brand new nowadays. You got the barrel car with the loader, or the 2 barrels, the sawmill log car, and then you've got the Sodor cargo car. We'll say you will notice that almost all of these items are really heavy on the wood side of things. What I mean is, after 2000, they slowly started to move towards more plastic materials. But 2000 and before, we really had an amazing, like, the quality of the wood was better, and I'd say over 90% of the item or vehicle was made out of wood, a really good wood product. There were a couple items like you can see here, the circus trains, and up here where you had the barrel car. That specific thing was plastic. I think the barrels were wood though, but you could see there were items, and that was what I mean. They kept slowly incorporating more plastic materials, but nothing like you see nowadays where it's just like sometimes over half or higher than that on plastic side of things. So one of the cool things is they advertise these special expressions. So this Thomas is actually pretty rare. If you're doing like Thomas wooden episodes and you're looking for a different expression, this particular Thomas is not one that you can find very easily. But that was definitely cool to see, which was cool because they would sell you something like this, which, gosh, look at the troublesome truck. That's so classic. They sell you something like this, and it wouldn't just make it the same. They actually went through the effort of making it a different expression, which is great. That just, to me, made it, all the more worth it, and the value of it was just through the roof, because it wasn't like you were collecting the same Thomas. Then we've got the Flying Scotsman. To even this day is probably one of my top 5 items ever released for the Thomaswoodenrailway. This particular version of the Scotsman is just absolutely incredible, and it's one of my favorites. And I honestly had like 10 different versions of it because we just loved it so much. So just something that I really value. And I don't think that the new release was great, the one by Mattel, but it doesn't compare to these original versions. Circus train, that's super common. I've seen so many of these on eBay. These just float up everywhere. Don't always see all the animals, but they're all out there. Then you had the Soda Railway Repair, which was interesting because it was kind of an oddball item. I can't even remember if it was ever in any episodes. It might have been in the railway books. I'm not entirely sure. But this item was not very common. I don't think it was on the market for too many years. This is another one of those obscure items that I think is great. It's got these coal hoppers that or for the ballast, it would put the ballast on the line on the actual railway. I've actually seen these around my house on some of the railroads around here. But this is a really cool item, and I honestly think it's a highly collectible item. You don't see this guy around there very often. You got Harold the helicopter, Birdie the bus, Terrence the tractor, old style. Look at that. It's classic. And this is the old style Birdie too. You can still see the guy with the pipe in there. And then we move on to the Thomas and the Magic Railroad. So this is where obviously the front of the book was advertising this. This was a big seller in the year 2000. So I think these probably sold pretty well. I'll just read what it says here. It says, Thomas and the Magic Railway is an action adventure packed with thrills, spills, whistles, and steam. It is a story about train folks who were apart in a railroad and brought them together. So they were highly pushing these in the year 2000, and I do think they sold well because I did see a lot of this on the market occasionally pop up on eBay even nowadays. This version of Lady was once again one of the smallest releases ever for the Wooden Railway, and it's a great model, but it's super tiny. Then you had Dodge and Splatter, and then you had Diesel 10, and then incredible version of Muffle Mountain playset. One of the cool things about this was that this particular item was based off the movie, but it had a piece of track that was like gold, if I remember right, which this set can fetch super high prices now on eBay. I've seen it go for hundreds, so pretty rare set. I have yet to actually review this set, so I think that might be on in the future of this channel, is to review something based off of that particular movie. All right, and then on the next page here, they said on the front that you got a movie poster. So this is the poster that you got with this yearbook. So it was cool to have these yearbooks because, you could get a poster, you could collect your item or put check marks on your items. It was great. And I believe these were free back in the day. Toy stores would carry these yearbooks, and you could just have them as free, which was great. So it's obviously cost them money to put them out, but to be honest with you, they probably sold a lot more of, you know, the Thomas items because they gave away free items like that. And so they would highly encourage toy stores to give them out. And sometimes the toy stores would like stamp their actual address on the back, which I didn't show. We'll get to that. They would stamp their address so you knew where you got the yearbook, which was just another way to promote them. But this is a great looking poster. So you could cut this out essentially and put it on your wall. All right, moving on. We've got the Clickity Clack track. And these pages are just pretty much showing you all the different parts and pieces that you could buy, and they really expanded in the year 2000. It just seemed like, I don't know, there's actually a lot that's not saying it's new, but I know that it just seemed like year 2000 they just had so many different items that you could buy and purchase. All these are common pieces that you could get, and it looks like they would sell them in 4 pieces here. You got the 2-inch, 4-inch, 6-inch, and 8-inch track. You got your curves, your 3.5 and 6.5, your ascending risers. Special engine switch tracks, which these are actually hard to find. I know a lot of the pegs would break off. I've got a ton of them in my attic, but I'm missing some pegs here and there. So that was a common weakness, but I don't know, were they made to last this long? Yeah, I think the original wooden railway was made to last this long. You know, it's been 30 years, and it's incredible to see that most of these actually held up very well. And this wood track is just incredible. You got the ascending track, the graded track risers, which is interesting. I remember these slowly went up, so it was important not to lose any of these because you really are in trouble if you couldn't go all the way up. The 3.5 single curve switch tracks, 6.5 single curve switch tracks, the switch T-track, highway crossing, special 8-inch turntable, and the elevated track foundation. Then you had the cross track with the 2 warning signs. And new for this year was the 14-inch wacky track and the 12-inch bumpy track. Then you had the roundabout action turntable, which was super common. That would be used for the sheds or the roundhouse. Your action switch track, which I did a video on that recently. I'll link to that. You had your stack overhead railway. So this is what I was talking about on the roundhouse set. It came with these, and these for some reason I always had a problem with trying to get the tracks to go between them. So that, in my opinion, was one of the weaknesses of the roundhouse set. Although it's such an iconic piece, I'd say the roundhouse set is still one of my favorite all-time releases for any Thomas Wooden Railway item. Then you had the track to surface ramps, the track adapters, the track adapter pack 2. So you had your male and your females. Then you had your 3-way parallel switch track, your flexi curve track, which I reviewed that as well, your Clickity track or Clickity Clack track packs. And once again, here are some different packs that you could buy. I think I've reviewed the elevated track pack. Then they offered a straight and curve track pack and a cross switch track pack. All right, let's move on to the bridges and tunnels. And if you're still with me, make a comment in the bottom saying I'm still with you, Josh, because I'm so curious how this video is going to do. It's a little bit different. I'm actually going out on a whim here and just talking and not really putting it in, and editing this video. I'm literally just talking from the heart on what my thoughts are on this kind of stuff. So this is definitely a weakness of mine, but I'm trying to get better at it and just try some different things on YouTube, as they seem to want longer content nowadays. So make a comment down below. I'm still with you, Josh. I'm curious. Then we got the bridges and tunnels here. It says up, over, around, and through. It's all in a day's work for Thomas and his friends. These bridges and tunnels add color and elevation to all your Thomas Wooden Railway system layouts. And bridges really were an iconic piece for any layout, and they still are even to this day. To have unique and different bridges is huge. To have the same one, wouldn't make any sense. And it was really cool that they offered so many different options. Here they show the arched stone bridge. They also show the drawbridge, which was cool. You could push a button and that would slowly open up, or the lever lowers the bridge. And I don't believe it could get through unless you raised it. I could be wrong. Arch viaduct, which is a classic. This thing was sold for a while, and it was just a common item that people bought, but it was new for the year 2000. Then you had the Sodor Bay Bridge, classic, and the suspension bridge. I've reviewed the suspension bridge. It was really cool. The suspension would go up and down a little bit, kind of had a little bit of a flexible track when you rolled over it. And this thing was massive. It was literally like 3 feet long. So it was pretty cool to have in any layout. It really made a big dent in like how you could see it. It just was a wow factor. You had the classic single stone tunnel, which if anyone knows, Roy Wilson has I believe his name posted on this thing. It's like an Easter egg on one of these, so you can actually find it. And that was something that he was pretty much familiar to do in a lot of different items back in the day. The lifting bridge, which I've reviewed, I think in a 60-second review. This is a classic lifting bridge. Then you had the Bluebird or the Tidmouth cover bridge, which had a bluebird in the window, is why I called it that. And then you had the mountain tunnel, which is classic. You know, back in the 90s, most people actually owned this mountain tunnel. It sold crazy. Then they offer Playtime Accessories. And here it shows the sawmill log pack, which I didn't remember that, but now that I see it, I do remember it. So these were cool because when it went through the sawmill, it could actually get split in half, which was great. It had a little magnet that allowed it to get split in half, which was great. You also had the combination tree pack, great for any layout. Sir Topham hat and lady hat, which were almost all wood. They had a little bit of plastic on them, but it was cool to see so much wood on those. Actually, these ones are not. I think this ones are actually, they transfer there. I think the heads might be wood. So interesting. Set of 3 buildings, which another classic item. The box that it came in was super tiny, so these were not very big items, but essentially it's just a block of wood with a roof and stickers on the side, and that's all we needed back in the day, because we could come up with our own imagination as far as what these items were and where we were going in the land of Sodor, which is great. So really, they didn't need to try that hard. Simple things like this, which was just, it wasn't overthought, and things that would just work. There's your signs, which was great. Your bumpers, your 2 signs, your set of 4 signals, your family of 4, and also the Sir Topham hat and the Workman 2 engineers, which these were all highly sold and definitely popular with many young engineers back in the day. Next page, let's moving on to page 22. We've got the buildings and destinations. Right here, they show well, let me read what it says. It says, watch the magic of the island of Sodor come to life as you add colorful buildings and destinations to your layout. The possibilities are endless, and they really were endless. No 2 layouts could be the same when you put your mind to it. You could always switch it up. They offered the switch tower, which I've actually never owned that, which is interesting to note. Then you had the grain loader, which that came in the lift and load set, if I remember right. And it was interesting. You could buy it individually. It was really cool because it had like this little magnetic part. This is actually plastic, but it had like a magnetic feature. So when it went through, it would flip this, and you could see the grain basically disappear. So it was really cool to see that. I think Thomaswoodenrailway actually had an issue with that one day, if I remember right, when he was reviewing it. Oh my goodness, this is great. It brings back the memories. Someone comment if I'm right on that. I may be wrong. Then you got the stop and go station, which was super common. Sodor engine wash. This is the first version of this. They had a scrub one, I think, that they released later, but this was the classic item right here. Then you had the really well-built fire station. I remember this was incredible when it came out. It was new for the year 2000. It says, turn the crank and the bell will ring as the fire truck pops out of the station. It says the fire train car helps put out fires on the rails, while a fire truck fights the fires that can only be reached by road. Includes 1 fire truck and 1 fire train with interchangeable hoses. And this was really cool back in the day. A lot of young engineers wanted to have this because it's like, if you had a fire on Sodor, you had a way to fight it with the fire engines. Then you had the coal station, which another classic. What more can I say about that? I remember you could spin that and would have imitate the coal going up. You could drop it. This was a great destination. Then you had the classic water tower, which even to this day, most of those water towers are lacking water. They've just dried up, even though they were inside, which is interesting to know. But the water tower, super classic. This is the second or third version of this particular tower. The first one was wood back in 92, 91 or 92, 93 or so. Moving on, we've got buildings and destinations. Continued here, we've got the Sodor log loader. Works with the lumberyard expansion pack. Be honest with you, it would work with anything, but they're advertising it that so they could try to get a sale on the lumberyard expansion, which is great advertising. Then we had Cranky the crane, classic Cranky. You had your Sodor cargo crane, and then the iconic roundhouse, which this was a huge seller. Everyone just had to have a roundhouse in their collection. And then moving on, we've got the sawmill with dumping depot, and this is probably one of those maybe top 5 items for me. I'll link a review that I did to this one as well. Honestly, this thing is built like none other. It is just solid wood almost everywhere except for a couple items, like I think that this one piece here that's plastic, but if I remember right, it was just incredible quality, and it screams nostalgia to me when you look back at the original Thomaswoodenrailway. It's cool because you could get this Henry's log car, you dump the piece of wood here, and essentially it would come down to the sawmill, and then you could pull this lever to pull it back, and it would split the saw or split the wood right there, and then you end up dumping it into the loader again, which is great. But this is super iconic to me. Brings back so many memories back with the original wooden railway. Then down here we had the famous Works Engine Repair Shop, which is incredible, one of my favorites. Unfortunately, the roofs do get lost quite a bit. So I don't know if you're looking for roofs. Sometimes you have to look for roofs on as replacements on eBay, and they're not cheap. Then we had the transfer table, which is another iconic piece. I know I've said that quite a bit, but it's so cool to look back at this year because they still had those original items that were just so iconic. But if you can't really see here, but the wood quality is absolutely incredible on this piece. And this was a genius piece, the way that they made it and how it could basically transfer between tracks, which was really cool. Then you had the engine shed right there, the special engine shed, the barrel loader, and the windmill. And the windmill is a piece that pretty much everybody had to own as well. And it was pretty much all wood, had 3 pieces, or actually 2, and it would just attach to the base here, and definitely designed well back then. All right, did I miss a page here? No, I didn't. All right, now we move on to what they're calling track layouts. So this is just something that a lot of these yearbooks back in the day would offer, and it's just something to kind of spark the young engineer into creating something that maybe they didn't even think of. It was great to have like these cheat sheets, and you can come up with these ideas. Although I will say that these would also push their products, which was a great way for them to get more sales, because they would offer different items and expansion sets that you could buy in order to make these layouts. So right here, they're showing this particular layout, and they're showing you how to build it and what parts and pieces that you need and where they're available in. For instance, the stop and go figure 8 set. This one had the single stone tunnel. So you can see all these different items that you need in order to make this particular layout. So, and then they had a picture down here of these layouts, which is great to see. And some of these layouts are honestly iconic and they look great. But it definitely cost you more money than you had in order to make that layout, because you're always missing something on this item. This next one they show is another great looking layout. And then they also, actually this one looks incredible. Reminds me of the 100 piece a little bit, but it's a little bit different setup, obviously. But they're showing the Flying Scotsman on there and different items. This is great. Moving on, we got another one here, a third layout here. And they show you to build this track layout, you need the following pieces. So they show you all the different pieces that you need down there. All right, let's move on to this last few pages here. We've got the Playtime Accessories. Now with the Playtime Accessories, I really have never seen these desks. I'm sure they existed because they were in the yearbook, but I don't remember ever seeing these, so I don't know if they sold very well. But they advertised it in the Wooden Railway catalog, which is interesting. These different desks that they showed that the young engineer could own. This clothes rack was popular. I've seen many of these on the market over the course of, X amount of years. So that's interesting to see that it was new for the year 2000. A lot of people would post this right up in their room when they would walk in, and they could put some of the items that they own, a couple of their hinges on the top, which had some track on it. All right, next we've got a couple last pages here. We got this 3D Thomas door, basically cabinet. And I have seen this before, but it's pretty rare to see, especially brand new. If you're looking for that, that's a highly collectible piece. But it was kind of like a toy chest, but essentially it was a cabinet instead. Practical, I'd say the chest is more practical, but this was something that they offered and did add some character to any young engineer's room. And you had the Thomas storage bench, which is hard to find again, I would say, but it was new for the year 2000. You could put all of your engines and all of your items into that container, and it was just really easy access. You could also sit on it, as you can see here. And they made a couple of those because you can see there's a Thomas toy box down here as well. And they advertise it that it includes exclusive learning curve safety hinge. So I guess if you're worried about somebody getting pinched or something like that, apparently this was something that they were aware of and designed so that it would help with not allowing you to get pinched. So interesting. Then these last few pages are not really advertising wooden railway stuff, but it is advertising Thomas products from the time. And you can see there's actually VHS here. They advertise some movies here, Make Someone Happy, Spills and Chills, Cranky Bugs, and Race, Rescues, and Runways. So those are all classics, but interesting to see that they were noting it in VHS. This is a VHS picture here. And then you had some of the different books that they offered here, which is Let's Go to School with Thomas, Thomas ABC book, and Thomas and the Tank Engine, which is part of Audrey's series, which is cool. I didn't even realize that was in here. So they were definitely trying to sell more of their products that way. So that's pretty much it there. There's the last page here, and it says, basically you could see, well, this shows you, talks about the wooden railway and what it's about. But this is what I was saying. So back here, it shows you all the different areas that it was available in. And sometimes the toy store would actually stamp their name on the back of this to indicate where you bought the item. And that was always a way that they could advertise themselves to go back to that store and buy your items. So anyways, if you guys enjoyed this style video, I literally just talked for almost 40 minutes. If you enjoyed this style video, let me know. I'd love to do some more where I can just come out with my own opinions and stories about things basically out of, just pull it out of nowhere, because this, I really didn't have any plans. I just wanted to talk through this magazine. So if you enjoyed this, I have tons of more yearbooks that we can go through. But if you made it through the entire video and you're not subscribed, I encourage you to subscribe and hit that notification button. And just leave me a comment down below saying you made it all the way to the very end, because I'd be curious to know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later.